Thank you very much, Roxanne. And oh gosh, if I do that, does that help? Nothing's set up for short people. And yes, my apologies for running in just now. I would have loved to have been here today, but our procurement people threw a tender briefing on me at the last minute for what will be the preeminent arboretum in the world very shortly, the National Arboretum Canberra. So yes, when you start out in librarianship, you never imagine that you're going to end up running arboreta and other things that come your way. Today I thought I would take a fairly practical approach to the topic that I was asked to speak on. And those of you who know me well would know that that's the way I do things generally. And I thought what we'd do is take a bit of a journey through what we've been doing in Libraries ACT, a little bit of a journey backwards into some of the lifelong learning work that I've done in the past, and just see where it takes us, if that's okay with you. And so don't worry about the slides, they're there for your visual enjoyment. They're not there for me to speak to, but they are just a little cross-section of some of the things we've been doing in Libraries ACT. I don't know about you, but I read the article that was in The Australian yesterday with quite some horror, and I have a picture of it when we get the slides up. And everybody read the article about the fact that Henley Beach College or high school in Adelaide has got rid of all of their books, given them away to charity. Yes, Alan would, I'm sure. Yeah, so, yes, very sad. Oh, good. Yes, I think Ali might have something to say as well. We're in an environment where constantly, particularly public librarians like myself, are being asked about whether libraries are obsolete. Didn't help the article in the Australian yesterday. But increasingly I think we are changing the way we do things, but our obsolescence is certainly not on the radar. We're also being told that the book is dead, we're all going to have e-readers and all those kinds of things. Well, I can tell you in the ACT our loans are up by 11% on last year. Our visits are up pretty much the same. So neither libraries nor the book are dead, certainly in the ACT. So why is it, that our loans are going up and our visits are going up? And I think we need to start with a really fundamental question about what business we're in. Some would say we're in the book business, some would say we're in the reading business, some would say we're in library collections business, some people might say we're in the technology business, some people might say we're in the words business, and others might, and we have for a long time, said we're in the information business. But a while ago I was at an executive development program that the ACT government placed me into, which was great. And I was talking to the guy who was running it, and he was sort of talking about the various parts of government where all of us had come from. And he introduced me and said, now this is Vanessa Little and she's from Libraries ACT, she's in the book business. She's in the library business. And I said, no, actually I'm in the lifelong learning business. And I think if you strip down what it is that we do in libraries, particularly public libraries, we are in fact in that space, and we always have been. We just haven't been able to put labels to it. We are in the business of self-education for the community. We're in the business of community education and information, and there's several dimensions to that, and I'm sure your speakers this morning, I see John there, spoke with great eloquence about the projects that they've conducted in Victoria and New South Wales about the economic value of libraries to a community. So I don't intend at all to look at that today. But there's also a social dimension to what we do, and there's an economic dimension to what we do, obviously, and a cultural dimension to what we do. And when you wrap all of that up in the fact that people are learning through access to our collections and access to our services, that's the business we're in. And so if you think about that, it's not the books in, books out that were always traditionally shown in the media and other places. If we say we're about books and loans and those kinds of things, I know I'm speaking to the converted over here with Alan because we're looking at our stats and what we collect in libraries. But we're actually focused really, and I hate to use this word because it's such government jargon, but about outcomes. If you look at the outcomes that we have, or the impacts that we make, we are in the business of influencing people, of facilitating their learning, supporting them in a learning journey, and all of that means that we're in the business of bringing about personal and community change. So if you look at it in that context, it will shape the way that you deliver your services and the way that you interact with others around creating value. So one day there's a research project in this for me, so please don't write this all down because, you know, when I retire I'm going to do my thesis. I actually think that there is some work that we need to do in terms of being able to track that value that we provide through shaping and changing people's lives. That doesn't have a dollar value associated with it, apart from if you start looking at people's incomes. My great dream would be to take a bunch of kids, perhaps the kids who are in one of our programs at the moment called Canberra Kids Love to Read, and track them throughout their lives until they get into the workforce or whatever, and just see what impact we have when people come and use our libraries against people who don't use libraries and who are not readers, and whether there's a difference in the way their lives turn out. I think I know the answer, but it would be nice to do the research, and don't anyone steal it from me. We look at community value in two ways, really, in the library service, and I see quite a number of my staff here, so all nod, okay, good. Good, Jazz, thank you. One is about the community value to the community itself, but the other one, and the one I want to explore a bit with you today, is around the people who pay the bills. That is the politicians and the bureaucrats within the bureaucracy of the ACT. In terms of the community, the first and most important thing is to understand that community. Something that I think libraries traditionally, public libraries again, traditionally skip a bit across the top of, but we've made a concerted effort to get right down into the community and their issues and their characteristics. So when you can really only deliver value to a community when you know what that community values, and until you get down to that, then you're just, as I said, skimming across the edges. We also need to anticipate community issues and needs. A very wise person in community development told me once, many years ago, in a council in South Australia, Vanessa, the community doesn't know what the community doesn't know. And so what we have to do is is anticipate some of the trends that are likely to come, and then engage with the community so that they know what it is that are their options and the services that they can provide. You know, in libraries, certainly the libraries I've ever run, the best market intelligence you'll ever find is your staff. And that's worked out to be a very good marketing tool for me within government as well. In fact, I had a very senior bureaucrat in my office on Friday afternoon, and I told him that if he wanted to know what the community really thought about a particular project or topic, he needed to talk to my staff and not the squeaky wheels who ring up on our Chief Minister's talkback. Because our staff are out there at the coalface, meeting people, talking to people. Everyone's complaining. If there's an issue that people in Canberra are complaining about, you can bet your bottom dollar they're complaining to our front of house staff. So if you're going to get to what is valued in the community and how you're going to deliver value, understand that community and use your resources as well as you can, and some of those are your staff. We do a lot of research, a lot of listening and a lot of reading as well in our library service. You would see, for those of you who are local, that we have very different libraries. So those of you who've been to Kingston Library, 193 square metres, tiny little boutique, sort of funky library, designed very much to meet the demographic that is in that inner south area. Gungahlin, on the other hand, big, luxurious, designed for a population of 90,000 people, many of whom are young families, so much more focus on children's spaces and on space for a growing community. We asked people questions that are perhaps not traditionally asked when we went out to design the Gungahlin Library. We asked them, you know, what do you want in your library? And of course we got the traditional, you know, well, we want books and we want things for seniors and we want picture books and we want talking books and all those kinds of things. and we want to be able to come on a Sunday, and we want a cafe. But we asked a lot of other questions of the community that I think has given us a very rich understanding of that community up there. On the understanding that people don't just read to learn, people learn by doing, by watching, by listening, by reading. We asked people about how they like to learn, if they had to learn something new, if they had to learn a new skill or find out a piece of information, what would they do, how would they do it? So we've got very rich information about the approaches people take to their learning around that area. We asked them things like what organisations do they belong to, what do they do in their spare time, what do they like to read about, what they did for a living generally, because people didn't want to tell you too much detail. But that regional study has given us a huge amount of information about about that community, and that can translate into collection, services. The design of the library was very much based on all of that. So if you see the design of the library, it's very open, lots of space for community activity, and a lot of space for learning that doesn't necessarily involve reading a book or listening to a DVD, watching a DVD. One of the other things that we do in terms of getting to that knowledge of and understanding of the community and their needs is that we actually embed that not only in our planning, which is very important, of course, but we embed that into people's performance agreements. So the performance agreements that come with my direct reports and then with their direct reports, there's a capacity or a requirement for people to conduct research and to continually refresh their knowledge about what's going on in their local community. Always adds a bit of a dimension to it when we move people around, because then the poor senior librarians have to go and relearn a whole new community and pass on their knowledge to the next person. But because we believe that this is a really important aspect to what we do, it is actually embedded in people's performance agreements. So they're measured at the end of 6 months and 12 months on how much they know and how they've been able to take that knowledge and turn it into programs, activities, services, and influence on the collection around that community. We do now offer that full lifelong learning experience to people. As I said, people don't always learn by reading. They learn by doing and listening and watching. And so many of our programs are around community learning that may actually not have a book involved in it. Of course, it's still important and it's still part of our core business, but we do try and pick up people out in the community for whom reading a book is not something that they would normally do first off. We, of course, take the horse to water and then encourage it to drink, but we recognise that some people in the community need to learn in different ways. We've also restructured the organisation. One of the things the librarians particularly were telling me probably about 12 or 18 months ago was that they were bored. And I suppose that's a bit of a reflection of the community in Canberra, but people are quite self-directed when they get to the library here. You know, they've been library users in school and university in many cases. They've been users of ours for a long time. So they can come to the library and pretty much get their way around the library and find what it is that they need, unless it's quite complex. So I had librarians who were running around pouncing on the community, going, "Can I help you?" and being asked where the toilets were and, you know, what the opening hours were. And so our librarians were saying, well, you know, that's great, moving to this floating model of that a lot of the public libraries in Australia have moved to, but really we're not adding value to the community. We're actually pouncing on them and making them feel a bit intimidated. So what we've done is changed the way we operate to what we're calling a concierge model. Could call it whatever you wanted, really. But they are people who we are targeting for the library technician program. Some of them have the technician's qualification and some of them don't, and so we've worked up a training and development plan to get them there over time. But these people are, their job is to greet people, you know, concierge that you get, I hate to say it, the banks, because they're not always the best, but those of you who are local would know the Canberra Connect offices and how well they operate, and Centrelink, who do some really great stuff with Concierge as well. So we've blatantly borrowed and stolen from other places, but you walk into one of our libraries, somebody who is a concierge officer comes up and says, "Hi, how are you?" They assess whether you really know what you're doing, in which case they let you through. They, welcome you, and if you've got a need for some assistance, they assist. They're obviously well enough trained to be able to find the very popular, when it's written, Love's Breathless Desire by Vanessa Little, or books on dogs or whatever. But when it gets to a complex reference inquiry, those concierges call the librarian and the librarian assists. So I wouldn't say it's a perfect model at the moment because everything's a learning, but certainly what we're doing is we realised that we weren't adding value to our customers by having our highly qualified staff wandering around chasing people. What we've done with those highly qualified professional staff is called the new approach specialisations, although I understand from the staff recently that they don't like that title, so I think we're going to call them something else, probably portfolios. It's everything old is new again, so we are moving back to things like, and it's not the same, but children's librarian and multicultural librarian and those kinds of things. Having said that, though, they're not all librarians, which has meant we've been bringing new and different skill sets in. But the job of those people is to not just sit in the library and wait for people to come in and deliver wonderful services to them, but to be much more of a community development worker out in the community, not just selling the library and what the library has to offer, but actually working with communities to identify what their needs and issues are and then help resolve those issues and meet those needs through library services. I personally don't mind if those things happen out in the community or in the library. Eventually people will come into the library once relationships are built and once programs are successful. So we have an early years team. Clearly early literacy is important. We have the traditional young people's team and those kinds of things. We've moved into an environment where we're looking. We have a specialisation around law and government. Blatant self-promotion on the government bit of that. We're trying to get as many government employees to know and love the library and use the library as possible for obvious reasons. So the specialisations are very much more focused on being out in the community, working with those groups that are relevant, and together building programming and activities and services that we can then deliver that meet their needs. And we've been able to partner with quite a number of agencies and people through that process, and it's really good promotion, but it's also really making us deliver the value that people actually value and not the things that we think are really, nice. So really encouraging our professional staff not to think about, gee, it'd be really nice to do blah. They actually have to demonstrate that blah delivers against a real need in the community that they've identified through their work. So, again, early days, but it's certainly a new way of looking at us delivering our value and delivering our services, very much more in a community development model than in the past. The other part of our delivering value to the community, the other big chunk of it, of course, is to, as I said, is to deliver value to the people who pay the bills. And that's our government and our bureaucrats and our other service deliverers across government. One of the obvious things we do, and I'm sure you all do it too, is link your plans to theirs and to link your activities and your objectives to theirs. So I spend my life responding to quarterly reports or half-yearly reports on the women's plan, the disability plan, the Indigenous plan, the blah, 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 blah plans within the ACT government, because for us that's really, really important to be showing the government and the bureaucrats that we're delivering value in all of those cohorts that we know we support. So when I first arrived here, I got all these, draft plans coming through, all these cabinet submissions with draft plans on them, and you couldn't see the word library anywhere in them. So just by continually chugging away at responding to these draft plans, saying, you haven't put the library in, this is where the library fits in this picture, this is what library services can do, we have a role in lifelong learning, we have a role in literacy. It's a pain in the neck, absolute pain in the neck, because you spend your life doing paperwork and responding to, you know what it's like, unrealistic deadlines that are put on you by, in our case, Chief Minister's Department, or Directorate now. But we do it because it's really important that the people who make decisions see us as part of their, as part of their cohort, not some sort of frothy thing that sits on the side that runs story time, which is a risk if you don't do that. And of course, we align ourselves very much with the Canberra plan, which is the overarching plan for the ACT. We found a little mention in the Canberra plan when I arrived to lifelong learning. Like many organisations or many jurisdictions, they've put lifelong learning under the formal education sector, which is not right, in my view. But we've hung on to those two words, lifelong learning, and we link everything back to the Canberra plan, so that we're always being seen to be relevant and always being seen to be a player in whatever game they're talking about playing, whether it's health, seniors, the economic agenda, whatever. What we've also done is found our niches within our bureaucracy and exploited them unashamedly. One, of course, and you would all know about the National Year of Reading, is that in Canberra everybody sort of blithely goes along thinking that we don't have a literacy problem because we've got lots of bureaucrats and we've got the highest pay rate in Australia and all those sorts of things. But the fact is that there are 32% of adult Canberrans who can't read or write effectively. It's hidden a lot in Canberra because there are pockets of disadvantage, and it's not, like in some of the big cities like Melbourne where I worked last, there are big, places where you can go, significant disadvantage there. But it is a bit hidden there. But of course no one in the government until we started to take it on, was actually looking at that 32% of adult literacy problems. So we've got that niche, and we exploit that to the hilt with all of our bureaucrats and with the government. The other one for us is that we have no ACE sector here in Canberra. So again, coming from Melbourne and previous to that, hometown of Adelaide, where there is a very strong either community and or government funded adult and community education sector. So we have one organisation here, which is CIT, Canberra Institute of Technology, that runs some sort of community programs on a fee-for-service basis, but there isn't any sector like with neighbourhood houses or anything like that that run an adult and community education program. So for us, that was a nice big solid, fat little niche for us to take, and so a lot of our programming and our activity would in some places be seen to be adult and community education delivery. We always make sure that, and this is a really simple one, but one that is a lesson that is well learned, is to always acknowledge the government every time you do something good and nice and great. Got a bit of a reputation on 666 ABC here for always getting my kudos in for the government, but every time you do something really great, you stick the government's logo on it, or you talk about how great it is that the government funds this, then you're popular with the government. One of the other things that we've done, and I encourage the staff to do within the library service, and I certainly live by it as well, and is get involved in as many things as you possibly can. For the librarians, it's out in the field in their area of specialisation. For me, it's within government. A while ago, our government set up what they call the Homelessness Accord, which is people across government who have a role in homelessness, not being homeless, but in addressing homelessness. I run around and sometimes call myself the homeless girl of Territory and Municipal Services. I turned up to my first meeting. There were people there from health and community services and education. And they said to me, why in the world would Territory and Municipal Services Directorate send their librarian to a Homelessness Accord? Well, we all know why, but they didn't. So I was able to give them a great long reason why I would be sent there. And now they get it. And now when they need to talk to someone who has access to people that are homeless, or they want to talk about some of the challenges for staff who are dealing with homeless people on a daily basis, it's me that they come to. So blatant self-promotion, but also making sure that we are adding value to the government and to the community by making sure that we're involved in all of those activities. The other one that has been quite successful for me only just recently is I participate in the Community Engagement Forum across the ACT government. So traditionally that's a whole pile of people who run the marketing and communications area of each of the directorates. So, you know, some might unkindly call them the spin doctors. But I go to that and are constantly going, if you want to know what's going on in the community, come and talk to us. Our staff know what's going on. If you want to talk to the community, come and see us. We have an infrastructure, we have places, we have 62% of the population in Canberra are our members. So again, I could be doing lots of other things rather than sitting there at meetings, but I do it because it's very, from my point of view, it helps us to be in that value proposition for the community and for the government. The other thing that we do, and I think is really important, is that we help solve problems. So if a bureaucrat or a minister or a member of the community has got some kind of problem, we come along and try and help them address it. One of the examples for that, it was Friday, there's quite a senior bureaucrat in my office. Our government does Twitter cabinet. I don't think anyone else does that yet, but so our cabinet has designated meetings during the year which are Twitter cabinet, so they interact with the community via Twitter as they're having their cabinet meeting. Of course, what happens is the squeaky wheels get on Twitter and have their say, whereas they're not so much getting the average everyday person. Because I've been involved in that community education, the community engagement group, they've come to me and said, we know that you have 62% of the population. We know that you have everybody from the homeless right through to the most senior bureaucrats in town. Can we do something with you around getting more people engaged with the Twitter cabinet? So we run a program called Technology Tasters, which is teaching people like me who can use a computer but don't, I do, but want to know what this Twitter and Facebook stuff is all about. So we're going to be running a series of those programs coming up on the 12th of June, an hour and a half technology taster, teaching people how to use the technology, and then their practice will be talking to the cabinet in Twitter cabinet. So when my mark of success is that these bureaucrats and others are coming to me now and saying, we have a problem, can you help us solve it, instead of us always, you know, and I do continue to go out and promote what we do. One of the other things that we've been really advocating around government is that we can deliver better value for what the government invests in us. So what we're saying to the government and to the bureaucrats is, you invest $13 million a year in your public library service and more when you add the Heritage Library in. We've got infrastructure, we've got staff. We've trained our staff in how to do a community engagement program called Learning Circles. Excuse me. I might just need some water. So come and use us. You know, if you want to get better value off of your $13 million, there's a whole lot of things we could be doing for you that we're not at the moment. Obviously, we try and bring things to the table. When we come and look for partnerships and try and add value, we don't try and take, but we try and do a little bit of give as well. Sometimes that's, my staff would say that's to the detriment of the sanity of the staff. But, you know, when the government comes to you and says, we want you to hand out gold cards to seniors, And by the way, we're putting in a new ticketing system and for the buses, and we want you to hand out the gold bus passes to everybody, and it's a complete dog's breakfast. You know, I know it's hard on the staff, but for me, it's certainly delivering value to that customer, but also to the government, that they're getting a distribution channel that is non-traditional. So how do we know that we're succeeding? And I stress that this is early times. Well, our use is increasing, as I said. We're up 11%. Our customer satisfaction sits at around 94%, which is always good. Agencies are coming to us. They're asking me for favours now instead of me trying to, beat them over the head and impress the word libraries on their forehead. And are we there yet? No, but the signs are good.
That was just a fascinating account of, I think, some very different value propositions from some of the things we've discussed this morning. Well, I think I'll go straight into our second speaker because we're running a bit short of time. And our second speaker is Rozanne Frost, who is a First Assistant Secretary in the Chief Information Office at the Department of Finance and Deregulation. We're very grateful to have Rozanne speak to us, and she's been particularly asked to provoke us. One of the things we wanted to try and ensure is that we weren't doing too much navel-gazing, that we were thinking more broadly. And Rozanne has a very, very broad history. She's been a very senior manager of information technology in BHP, in CSC, in CSRO, where I first knew her, Transact and Finance and Deregulation. She's always been highly concerned about business outcomes. Not looking at things in an old-fashioned way, but challenging people and provoking them. So we've invited her here today, particularly to provoke us. So thank you very much, Rozanne.
So I turned up without printing off my slides, so just forgive me if I keep looking that way. Yeah, okay. Thanks for that introduction, Roxanne. There was one thing you said there that made me think about. I'm very much looking forward. I actually found myself giving a speech yesterday about everything old is new again, which is something that you also said, Vanessa. So maybe there's a bit of a theme going through some of those discussions. I can probably just talk. Is it okay to talk a little bit with? Yeah, I'll talk without the slides if that's okay. First of all, I want to say, I'm a community member in Canberra. I've been living in Canberra for 10 years, and I absolutely love the place, much to my family and my friends and everyone's surprise. I think Canberra's a bit of a hidden secret, that bush capital. And one of the things I notice, and I live in Kingston, so I'm that boutique community that thinks how fantastic it is that I just think you really hit it right on the mark with that library in Kingston. And I think that's a recognition of how much libraries have stayed up with the times and been very much a community resource. I also love the National Library. It's one of my favourite places in Canberra, and I go there as often as I can, whether it's just for the fantastic cafe or whether it's for the exhibitions or just to sit down and just do a bit of quiet study myself. So all those aspects of the libraries to me are wonderful and amazing. Also in my new role, I've only been at the Department of Finance for about 5 months, and I'm really fortunate to be in the parliamentary circle, and it's the first time I've also been in what they call the central agencies in government. And it's a real eye-opener and actually a very proud moment to be in one of those central agencies. And one of the most beautiful things about it is, not just the architecture of where Treasury and Finance are in relation to Parliament House, but also the fact that you get up to Parliament House and get to spend some time there. And the other day at Senate Estimates, I was fortunate enough to sort of go past and have a peek in the library. And there's another beautiful place that, is really great to have it right there in the parliamentary circle with many government officers realising the value of it. So, but what perspective am I coming from today? So I recognise all those aspects of libraries and stuff, but we'll move on to the... Yeah. Oh, sorry. Do you want me to use technology? Okay. Thank you. So there's aspects of libraries that, what I've just mentioned and what you've just said that I just love and I think it's fantastic, but that's kind of me as a community citizen or me as a government officer. But What I really want to talk about today was, I suppose, the fact that, I'm a Chief Information Officer. I have been for quite a while. I need to be working like this with you as librarians, as information officers, and to me it's just not happening. So there might be some of you that, I was in CSIRO from 2003, and scientific research, of course, is massively based in, on the need for information management. And when I talk about that, about the science data sets, other research papers and things like that. And we were putting this diagram together, that's nearly 10 years ago now, about, you've got records over here and you've got science data sets in about 1,000 spots. How do we access all this information and what we do? And we came up with quite a good information management strategy between the librarians, the scientists and the IT people. And I know that strategy was actually taken, and there's a beautiful glossy about it that was delivered in, I think it was 2008 or 9, not long after I left. Anyway, come forward 5 years, and I'm at Department of Finance, and you know where we are? I've got records over here and books over there, and I've got email over here, and I've got this over there. And I just groan at our lack of ability to crack that nut, to work together, to actually solve that information management properly across business. Work with IT and, solve that problem. We shouldn't be... that problem was in Transact, that problem is in every place I've gone, and I haven't seen... And I'm a bit mad at myself, actually, as well, in my job, and particularly having information in my title, about cracking what it means to give every person who works in their job access to the information that they require to be able to do their job and to be fully informed. So, and I know none of you would be proud of the fact that, if you do research, you just go to Wikipedia. That'd be something that you would all shake your heads at and, be disappointed if that was your children, where that's the only place that they go looking for information. But on the other hand, look at where they're at. They're used to access anywhere, anytime, they want it instantly. And here we are, where do you go for information? I'm in a job where, maybe try the email, or maybe go to the G drive somewhere, and I go, I haven't got time to look at the G drive. I'll find the electronic record, find the paper record. And I just sit there and shake my head and think this has to be solvable. I know enough about technology to know that it's solvable, but what we don't have is the library community or the information officers that, that some of you are, working together to crack this nut. I'll just move on to, and I'll move on to the, sorry, yeah. And so, I have my colleague here, Kate, and I feel a bit embarrassed because we haven't had a chance to speak before this meeting, and I am representing the Department of Finance, so anyway, I'll just say what I need to say. But it's 2012, and I'm just so disappointed that I've walked into a job and the IT's okay, don't have much of a challenge. And when I went and spoke to there are 6 groups in our department, and when I spoke to every single Deputy Secretary, every one of them said, we need access to information and we need to be able to find it, and we need to get to it quickly. And we've got no support on that front. And anyway, so I came up with this theme at the time, so we might move on one, about, and you call things jazzy names, but actually what I want is something sustainable, and I actually want to achieve it in my career. So I've decided it's going to be my #1 goal in the time that I spend at the Department of Finance, is to actually solve this information on demand problem and make sure that when our department, which does a lot of whole-of-government policy, when they go to do that policy and manage that policy, they've actually done an environmental scan. They know what's going on out in the community. They understand what businesses they're impacting when they put whole-of-government procurement policies in, or whole-of-government ICT policies. And they're actually well informed, and we've made that easy for them in making that policy work. And how are we going to do that? What are we going to do? And I just might sit at that one. I was just sort of thinking about, where do we go from here? All this information management is not an IT problem. We just provide the tools. Information management is all about, the people, the information they want to know, how they turn that into knowledge and wisdom. It's all about people seeking more information. It's cultural practices and things. It's processes that support it, all the policies and processes and things like that that make it easy for it to work. And the tools is the least important thing. If you tell me your business problem, I can find a tool that works on that front. So I don't necessarily think technology is the issue, and sometimes technology becomes the problem because we say, oh, it's SharePoint, oh, it's email, oh, it's records management, oh, it's, web content management, and we never, we can give you plenty of tools, but we never give you the tool that works or the combination of tools. And so when I came into this job again and in January, first of all, I avoided Kate. I thought I don't want to talk to the librarians because I thought I don't know where to go or what to do with it, and I can't believe that we're back 10 years ago, that nothing's changed. It's 10 years and nothing's changed. And so I was in denial for a while, and then I thought, and then we started to work across, we both work in the Chief Operating Officers group, and I thought the way to solve this is we all have to work together, and we'll start off with an information management strategy. What are we actually doing? What problem are we solving for the department? Who have we spoken to? What are their information needs? And, and where are we going with it? And so we've started with, and these are all very boring, basic stuff with an information management strategy. But when you break it down about delivery of that and how you're going to go about it, you actually realise that you need to understand, as I said, what the business does, and you need to understand what the information is behind what the business does. And when you start to break that down, you need to understand an information architecture. You'll just throw away words like metadata tagging and things like that. Now, I have no formal training in that, and I don't have much of an idea. But I certainly look to this group of people and aspects of it to actually do that and get it right. So when I develop systems now, I actually need people like you to work out that information architecture. I can't do it on my own anymore. It's just not possible. And you've got to think bigger than IT. And IT people traditionally aren't trained appropriately in thinking like that, in breaking that down and thinking like that. And I don't think we need to be trained in it. I think we should work with you as colleagues to solve all these problems. So at the moment, I have been the Chief Information Officer. I have to deliver an enterprise architecture. And it's really interesting. I asked a group of staff to start on it, and where did they start? Down at the infrastructure and application architecture. Could not describe and do a proper business architecture to say exactly what the business does, how it goes about it, and we certainly didn't have a good view of what the information is that's required to do the business. It's a massive gap across most companies, across most business sectors, industry sectors, and it's an issue because you can no longer just sit there and do technology solutions from the bottom and say, and just to do this, solve this problem, I'll get this tool and it needs this data, and that's it, and you don't think anymore. When even in the 6 months I've been in finance, we're implementing a new whole of government budget system that's going to impact every single Commonwealth agency. They've thought about the data architecture of what they want to do because they've spent millions on previous systems and haven't been able to slice and dice the data the way they want. And you know what's the matter? They never ever thought about or cracked the information architecture. What was the information required that makes sense to you and me, not from a data perspective but from an information perspective that helps people do their jobs about whole of government finance and things like that. So, I'm just well aware, and I challenge you, I actually haven't got an answer to this problem. I'm just so frustrated that 10 years ago it hits me in Commonwealth government departments that nothing's different. And I'm caught in conversations like, and I don't want to be caught in conversations like, well, let's close the library. And I just think, we've got a beautiful library in Parliament House. That's fantastic. Let's use it for what purpose it serves. But let's think about the skill base that all the librarians have and how we can utilise them in many fronts, whether it's the community libraries, what the National Library does on many fronts, and now serving the business. How do you serve the business needs of all these companies that are out there? I think you have amazing value to offer, but I don't understand how you're offering it back to me, and I don't understand how to work with you. And I think you've got the answer to my problem, but where do we meet and discuss that and decide how to go about information architecture and what does it mean? How are you all placed to understand what the Department of Finance does, what Transact does? You'd be amazed in information architecture for a telecommunications company like Transact, the slicing and dicing of information about you as customers if you live in the ACT that changes the way you think and run business. But, you know, we're not thinking like that or doing that, applying that sort of thinking to the way we want to run the business. So in finance, in moving forward, I hope I'll get some ideas and suggestions from you. I haven't got an answer, I just challenge you. Are you interested in becoming information managers, information architects? Are you happy to be working with, with IT? And IT needs to be happy working with all of you, to solve the problem of what it means to deliver an enterprise architecture which describes the business you're in, and the underpinning information architecture which describes the information you need to run a business. And that's complex in many businesses and industries. I'm fortunate that I'm just in finance and it's about whole of government information. If I was at BHP still, I'd be a bit overwhelmed by what that meant, but you'd need a lot of people like you to help us out. So I didn't really want to go on at you too much. I actually was hoping that you would all tell me what the answer to the problem is, because I seriously, maybe this is my retirement job, I don't know, but if it is, it's a job where I want to crack that information management. I don't want to keep writing a strategy. I actually want to deliver it, I want to do it, and I want to know how your industry can help me do that, and what skills and abilities you can provide and ways you can change my thinking so that I get this right. And also, technology never solves anything. Never. I mean, technology is fantastic and it's an exciting industry to work in, but it actually doesn't solve anything very often unless you get all of this right. And particularly in business, it doesn't solve anything. So I'd rather hand it back to you, and I'm really interested in your conversations about whether you're interested in being in this space. Is it something you want to do in working with business? What does it mean for you? So thank you for listening. Roxanne said she wanted me to say something, so I hope that's been of interest to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. And I was just going to say that one of the interesting things is that we're meeting in this room, and many of our library colleagues are meeting in the next room at a meeting of the Australian National Data Centre project, where they're actually working on helping creators of research data better describe them, better record them, so that it can actually be a sustainable, permanent part of the information architecture for the nation. So there's lots of interesting questions in there. We'll hold questions off till the end, just for timing purposes, but our third speaker is Kim Holden, who's the Department of Education and Workplace Relations Librarians. Kim is a very active member of the Australian Government Libraries Association and ALIA, and we've been very fortunate to have her in Canberra. She's contributed a lot to professional education, developing professional issues, and last year she was the winner of the ALIA ACT Award, which we were very pleased to be able to give her. So, Kim, with no further ado, over to you.
Thanks very much. I'm going to talk to you about a little bit more practical, what a government library today, what we do, how we're still surviving in these times where people say you don't need a library. That does come up within Commonwealth Government, and we have had libraries closed. So for us, we're still here, how we do it. I'm going to talk a little bit about our clients, our services, how we find their information needs, market the library, and talk about the library into the future. So a little bit about our clients. We service DEWA, whose vision is to make a difference in the stages of an individual's life, whether that's early childhood care, development, quality education at all levels, skilled workforce, greater participation, safer workplaces, and an inclusive society. This is our primary library client base. So as you can see, that's quite a wide-ranging set of information that you need to provide to that. At the moment, there was a machinery of government change in December last year where the tertiary, international education and the vet sector moved to the Department of Industry, Innovation, Science, Research and now tertiary education. So that change is still being implemented. So we're still servicing that sector even though they've moved to another department. So we're still in flux. So there's probably about another 900 people as well that we're servicing from that sector. But we also provide full library services to Safe Work Australia. who is a statutory authority established in 2009. They were previously part of the DUA department. So again, there's another 300 staff there, more focused on research. So again, we have to look at how we service that sector. We also service the Fair Work Ombudsman, mainly just providing them access to the electronic, legal, industrial relations, etc. resources that we have on our desktop, and a few other little inquiries from time to time. But providing them with access to information is how we service them. I like this quote that was on a recent issue of ALIA Insight. It was by Ray Bradbury, the Order of Fahrenheit 451. Without libraries, what have we? We have no past, no future. I think it's an important role. It struck a chord with me because I think it's an important role for a government library. One of my staff has often reminded us, and she's here today, that we act as the corporate memory of the department and its various past entities. So thank you, Beverly, for that. And she constantly reminds us that we are the corporate memory. Our deposit collection of past publications often reveals many interesting facts and information. There's 1915 labour reports, Commonwealth employment statistics from 1946, or OH&S reports on mine ventilation in 1900. You can't sometimes find this information elsewhere. People say, oh, go to the records. Sometimes the records management has been sentenced. Those files are gone unless it was deemed important enough to go to the National Archives, and that doesn't always happen. We've had a number of instances really recently where that deposit collection of older material has been extremely useful and has been the only way to answer a question about something from the past. So I think that part of a government library cannot be underestimated. Those clients have a wide range of interests, a wide range of subjects. Policy, program delivery. Research needs to back up that policy. We talk a lot today about evidence-based policy. We need that we need that evidence-based policy from sources that we can rely on. Google doesn't. Yes, Google Scholar might give us some of that, but it doesn't give all of that. We need that. Areas need to be kept up to date on new reports that might be happening around the world, around Australia. That current awareness is important to back up the things they do. I mentioned Safe Work Australia has a large research focus. So there's a lot of topics, whether it's explosives, climate change, vulnerable workers, nanotechnology, standards, and of course workplace injuries. They need to know what's being said out there on those topics, what the latest reports are. And I mentioned Fair Work Ombudsman needs access to online legal and industrial relations resources. This is our library services page on the intranet for the department. It sits, a link from the front page of the intranet. And we regularly update material on that page which gets picked up on the front page of the intranet. So we're trying all the time to keep to the fore and people see things that the library is doing so they know the services are there for them. So we try and capture that as often as we can and use the mechanisms that happen to be there within our grasp to let them know what we're doing. Yes, we've got a lot of the traditional library services, literature searches, interlibrary loans, training, orientation sessions for new starters, and all the general reference and things that we have on the intranet. A lot of the current awareness alerting I mentioned, electronic newsletters that we forward out, as well as the traditional journals and databases. So all of this we do, but we try and do a little more if we can to provide that information to our clients. I mentioned the current awareness services, and for such a wide-ranging department, this is the list of what's there. There's still the traditional table of contents services for education or OH&S, because that's a large part of the areas we service, to let them know what's in the journals and what's out there. But we also trawl for other information and try and find out what they need. We talk to a lot of areas, and some of those various alerts that you see there come in response to talking to areas, talking to HR and their request for a learning and development alert on what's in the journals, what's the best things that are out there on learning and development, and how they can get that across to the department and to their network across the department. We have a regional affairs alert which came as a request of the South Australian office to say, hey, what about us? We need to know if there's anything being said in the media, reports, other things about regional affairs across the wide range of subjects for the department. As you said, education, employment, social inclusion, all of those things across the department. So with talking to them, we created those alerts with what they wanted. The migration area, which looks after employment issues such as the seasonal Pacific Workers Scheme, any of the issues that come across that sector, they said, hey, what about us? Can you do something for us? So getting out there and talking to our clients, liaising with our areas. We have a liaison librarian that goes once a month up to Safe Work Australia and goes around each of the areas and say, hey, what's your current research topic? What is it now? Is it changed? Is there something else we can include in our OH&S research alert that will service what you need? So getting out and talking to those clients. We had feedback from some of the economists in the department about the economics alert. Some things we had in there weren't really relevant to them anymore. So with talking to them, they got together with the other economists areas within the department and said, hey, these are the list of the journals that we like the most. These are websites where we want to know if there's something new happening. This is what we want out of an economics alert. And we've revamped that in response to that. So you have to be open to that. Our social inclusion alert has been so popular that it's been taken up by other agencies. It also goes to FAXIA, PM&C, and also some researchers at Charles Sturt University who heard about it through someone else. So we send a PDF version of the alert out to those people. So once things start and getting and talking to the clients and talking to others, you know, the value that you can add is increased. I mentioned we do training. We try and capture people when they come new to the department. We have monthly orientation sessions for new staff. We get a list of new staff. We invite them, send them an invitation. Not everyone takes us up, but if they've missed us last time they couldn't come, they had a meeting, we'll go back to them next month and say, hey, this is our next session, hope you can come. We talk to the HR that looked after the new graduates that come to the department, and we make sure we capture 100% of the new graduates each year and give them an orientation session to the library, because we figure if we capture those new graduates and they know the resources that are there and they know that, hey, if I get a project I can come to the library and say, give me some guidance, give me some help, then we know that as they progress, hopefully, they will continue singing the praises of the library. We provide hands-on training sessions on improving your search skills, including advanced Google. We market it, maybe the advanced Google, and they get a lot more than they bargain for. If they think they're coming for the advanced Google, they get a lot more. We also do over-the-phone training if we need to for the state office people. That's the library orientation module that we've had loaded to the intranet. So if a new starter is in a state office, then we'll send the link to that with a promise of more training. And the department recently has GoToMeeting, and we can use that, we plan to use that to be able to do that interactively and provide maybe our advanced Improve Your Search Skills training course to the state office people by GoToMeeting to do that online training. So we're trying to see if we can not forget the state office people and see how we can help them. But we've also got out there in other ways and talked to areas. We also manage the ISBNs on behalf of the Department and Safe Work Australia, and have a strong link into the online publishing where possible to try and make sure we know what's happening in the department. By offering to manage those in Dewar, that was done by the library. In Dest, it wasn't. So when the two libraries joined, we said, all right, we'll take it on behalf of the department. We also manage data sets like the ABS CURFs, the ABS table builder licences for the department, and the FAXIA longitudinal data sets, HILDA, LSEC and LSEC. So it provides the library, if someone's coming to you with research and we say, hey, did you know that there's a data set that can provide this sort of information? Those sort of linkings, it makes sense to us to be able to let people know what's available to them. And we also quite often link areas that are doing sort of crossover research in what they're doing. So taking on other services, taking on other management helps bring us to the fore across the library. We talked about surviving in times of ambiguity. Getting out there and trying to discover the organisation's needs. I encourage staff to go to any departmental presentations that are going on so we can find out what the current priorities are. I have systematically gone and talking to every branch in the department. Keep trying. When some say that they know about the library, it's fine. But when I persevere and make sure I do get to each branch in the department, I quite often hear afterwards, I didn't know you could do that. So getting out there, I hear what they're working on, we bring that back to the library, to the staff that are doing the research. So often people are rushed and they forget they can use the library and quite often need reminding as to how we can help them. I've also presented at EL2 leadership forums to get out there and say, hey, not just for your area and what you're working on, but for your own development. Hey, we have these resources, we can help. We also try and fly the flag, library flag, wherever possible. Reconciliation Week yesterday, we had a display of the library resources on Indigenous issues, anything we had available, the Indigenous alerts that we produce, letting people know, hey, that's there, in case you didn't know about it. Whether it's that one, or the Business Skills Expo, National Families Week, Careers Development Week, all of those, we've tried to make sure we're involved and letting people know, hey, we're there. We've also, the department seems to have stepped away from general orientation sessions, but some groups still take on orientation sessions themselves for new starters. So we've offered to be involved. Our labour market strategy group is one that strongly still does an orientation session, so the library is involved in doing that. We've also offered to provide training sessions for the Australian Indigenous Development Program. This is as well as improve your search skills on how to research, how to write a report, where some of the participants didn't really know what they were doing and found out a lot more and found it really useful. There hasn't been one of those for a little while. The next group is in October 2012. We made a contact yesterday at the reconciliation displays that, hey, we found out who the person is that's organising the next group. So they now know that, hey, the library can be involved with that. We often ask research clients and alert recipients for feedback, as I said with the economics alert, and we've revamped accordingly. It's important to be seen to act on that feedback and make those changes to show people that that is useful and we will respond to their needs. Particularly Library Week, and I'll put this up even though I don't like the photo, but persevere with that. During Library Week we made a concerted effort to get out there and do more than we already do. Staff notices every day. Everyone notices our green T-shirts and we use them whenever we do displays, so much so that I rocked up to do a bit of my turn on the display yesterday, and one of the staff members from the department picked me up because I didn't have my green T-shirt on. I should have my green T-shirt on. though the other girls did. So getting out there, we got those T-shirts last year because for Library Week we made an effort to get out and walk every different building in the department had. So we went out each day of the week, the girls would go out for an hour, take brochures of the library and walk the floors and say, hey, we're from the library, can we help your area? So we got out there and did that. So now they all recognise the green T-shirts, we're from the library. We've also had our Library Week quiz. We target the electronic material that we have in the library to show it. We have a quiz with 4 $25 Dimmicks vouchers, they are now, but to provide as prizes. So we target the electronic resources so it doesn't disadvantage state office personnel, and we have the questions framed to draw attention to the capabilities of the various electronic resources we have. And last year we had our advanced Google training session filmed and a link added to the intranet with the rest of the department's secretaries' videos, etc., and transcripts available so people can sit in their own time to do that advanced Google training. The week normally culminates in a biggest morning tea and the drawing of the quiz prizes, but with photos and information the following week on the intranet. So we try and get our message out there as far as possible. But we're not sitting there we're looking to the future. In 2012, we're looking to do a library review, not as close the library, do we need a library, but how can we align the library for the future directions of DEWA? What do the clients want from the library of the future? How can we use new technologies, but within the firewalls? How can we use that within the department? Do the library staff skills prepare them for the future? What do we need to do that? We're also at the moment moving to the department's main building at 50 Marcus Clark, again because of the machinery of government changes last year, where the building where the library sits at the moment, that building has been given to Dicity to house those. So we're looking at how we split the collection, having some up on the floor, some in the basement, some at Fishwick. So we've got those sort of physical challenges as well at the moment. But there's been no, the library will still exist. And I think that's an important part of why, when this library review went to the executive, they didn't think about closing the library. They talked about still having the importance of the collection and the history that's there, but how can we move to the future? How can we prepare for that? So I think that's an important part of it. I think we need to meet the challenges of the future. We've heard today about demonstrating return on investment. Even more so we need to do that. What value can the library add? We've seen that with all sectors today talking about that. We want to implement the review results to be future ready, to expand our roles, to be open to change. We've done that so far in offering to manage other data sets, but there may be other opportunities to use our skills across other areas of the department. We need to collaborate, and I think collaborate has come, a number of times today, whether it was Ian Chubb talking this morning or John talking earlier about collaboration. That's within the department as well, within the agencies, within other Commonwealth agencies, as we do now through the Aglan network. But we need to do that more so to strengthen those links for the benefit of our clients or their clients, if it's the other agencies, and for their survival and meeting that to the future. Now, Blaine Dessy, when writing about the US federal libraries, said that federal librarians want to be future ready, but just as importantly, they want to shape the future environment of their work. And I think that resonated with me, that we need to prepare for that, and we need to look at exactly what we want in that future. So thank you very much.
Well, that gave us two very different perspectives on libraries that are looking at different organisational change, and a great challenge from Rozanne to look within your organisation to opportunities that are broad and relate to data and relate to organisational success. So there's a lot of things for us to think about. But now we've got time for some questions before afternoon tea. Questions, comments, you can be provocative as well.
ACT Public Libraries. I noticed on one of our earlier talks that the funding for ACT libraries has dropped compared to all the other libraries across the other states. I just wondered if you had any comments about that.
Yes, it dropped a few years ago, but I think if you look at the data over the last 5 years, it's started to go up again. So we had a review just before I arrived, and there was considerable cuts to the library service, but over time we've been addressing that, and certainly the money's been pretty stable. When I arrived, we were able to convince the Cabinet that we needed better resources. So one of the reasons why our loans are doing so well is because I've had $2 million extra each year for the last few years to put into collections. So yes, we did take a big hit. It hit more than just our finances. It certainly hit our sense of positive nature, but it's certainly been coming back since then.
I don't know if I'll help you, Rozanne. Rozanne?
Oh, Rose. Call me
Rose. I worked at DEWA before it became Kim's manifestation as DEWA, but my boss brought out the information capability model, which was came out of Libraries and Archives of Canada. And he just got a few of the librarians out of the library space who were interested. I got out because I was wanting to move out into strategic information management. But I think of all of us, a lot of librarians are frightened to move out of the environment. I'm not saying all of them. I know that Kate, who works for you, a lot of librarians have got to think about what my skills are, because I've met so many librarians who've moved into knowledge management and strategic information management, and I think you've got to learn that. I think myself, being a librarian, is a part of, for a lot of people, as careers will change, you need to think about moving out, and I actually found my period working in an information management team was both challenging and very interesting. And I do think you'll probably find a lot of good librarians that you can dig up around the place, both in your own department and elsewhere, and probably one of the best departments that, and it was headed by a librarian. You remember that lady at AG's? She did a lot of work with the information management capability model, Rozanne, and she had an information management framework, and they're tools developed by librarians. But I'm saying to you, you could say an information management architecture comes out of a scan of the environment, and you need to get a multidiscipline team. And you particularly need your records manager, because records are now essential, because it's, I call it a coercive part, which is probably rude at compliance. Is that the word, Rozanne? And I think a lot of librarians have got excellent metadata skills. A lot of them have got an affinity for people. And I would say that the ones that some of us denigrate who work in tech services are brilliant people, because they're used to electronic resources, and they're the people you need to cherry pick. And they can be young or old. There is a mixture. How old was I, Rozanne? Mid-40s when I did that. And I think a lot of librarians are very keen to move out of that. And a lot of librarians have got excellent control vocabulary skills and taxonomy skills. I don't know if taxonomies are that important anymore, but they're also very good at search engine optimisation. And I've noticed at Tax, the lady who's leading the team for getting a new content management system is Anne Turner. She's an ex-librarian, and she's just, her skill base comes out of the library environment, and she's very proud of being a librarian. So yes, there are a lot of us out there.
Yeah, so I really don't need to comment, do I? Because thank you. what I would like to say is I absolutely know you've got the skill base, but where are your clients here to understand that you've got that skill base? I have to meet a librarian to know that. I have to work in CSIRO to actually find out your skill base, to change my old-fashioned paradigm of what I think a librarian is from when I was a kid at school or university to actually how useful you are in the workplace. So there's an issue there to me about people understanding your skill base and you know, selling. And I don't think it's just selling yourselves to the clients, or whether you refer to them as clients or not, but also it's like people in information technology having their ears and eyes open to that skill base, realising that they're actually failing in that layer of what they're delivering and seeking that expertise elsewhere as well. And I know I'll encourage that and do encourage that amongst my staff, because I know we don't have that level of expertise. But yeah, I agree with where you're coming from. And I think there's a lot of fantastic work that's been done that I've got no intention of reinventing anything. Absolutely no intention.
I think librarians have got I found it was, I would love being a librarian, and all my friends are still librarians, not all of them, but the majority of them are, but I think a lot of librarians are slipping the noose that ties you back to the physical environment of books and e-services and moving out. And I think the information architecture that lady who was the information architect at Faxia about 4 years ago, she was a librarian, she worked from there at heart. But I think librarians have to also promote themselves. But I think management has to say, I need some of this pen on metadata, or some of this pen, and you've got, and not all librarians have got that thing. I've met a lot of them are not interested.
I think you make an interesting point there, because it's, I also think, like, I'll just say it because I'm older. As you get older, you can't afford to say, I can't stand ICT, or I can't understand information architecture, or I don't understand metadata and stuff. And I think there's an element of, there's issues with management as they, you know, go through of just understanding that it's a problem and knowing enough about it and who to go to become more articulate themselves about it and to start seeking it out. And I think that's a problem in itself, and that people don't, managers aren't and leaders aren't understanding. They say, I'm scared of IT, and I guess I'm scared of, you know, what do you mean by an enterprise architecture? So I was in a conversation last week talking about enterprise architecture and really talking about information architecture, because it was very relevant to the conversation. And I actually got it right for a change. And I had someone say to me, that's the first time I've understood that. Because, you know, when I first stood up, because I was IT, they groaned and weren't going to listen to me. So there's an element of having to, you know, talk the right language and also educate other leaders about, you know, seeking it, not being frightened of, you know, whether it's taxonomy, metadata, information architecture, that sort of thing.
Well, I've got Rozanne was writing in knowledge management degree at masters, and it's very interesting, but a lot of it was waffle. And because I'm a practical person, I come out of a very practical profession, I actually enjoyed the information architecture units, I think, because it's something I can understand.
No, I think that's a very important conversation. One of the things I think Rose has challenged us to is to say, what is our value, not just in terms of providing the services that we provide within a library, but how do we actually let her know before she starts an exercise that we've got a skill set that's available. And I think it's part of selling value on a broader proposition, which is a challenge. And we've actually seen Vanessa talk about going along to community forums for the homelessness that is saying, look, I've got a service, but I can actually think outside that space, and I will just, I mean, I'm sure she did the right things, but sometimes you need to just turn up and participate and go beyond your comfort zone, and to engage with ICT to say, the only successful solution will be a joint one. So it's not about ownership anymore, it's about contribution.
Any more comments or questions or thoughts?
Just a very small comment on the conversation we've just been having. I'd like to congratulate you, Rose, on being a Chief Information Officer. It's a very important step for an organisation to become a bit more grown up, a bit more mature and a bit more integrated with its information. I think in the past a lot of organisations have confused the role or misunderstood the role of their Chief Technology Officer. They've all got Chief Technology Officers and none of them have got a Chief Information Officer. And your organisation will do well to have had a change in that, or not a change necessarily, but the addition of that position. I don't know how many other organisations here in Canberra have got a Chief Information Officer, But it's important to have one because there will be now a focus for the comments to go to that Roxanne and Kana have just been talking about. There'll be, presumably in your organisation, an active and attentive audience for the conversation that all the people in this room are very well capable of having.
Thank you for that. What I like about the area, though, is I'm working in the Chief Operating Officer's group. The library's in another space. Quite a few other of these functions are in other spaces. And you can't, and I firmly believe, you can't ever deliver IT in isolation. So this is actually an initiative at the Chief Operating Officer's level. It's sort of like whilst I'm Chief Information Officer, I can't do it through IT. So yeah, I'm working across the group, which is, and actually made it really exciting and quite a good role. All right. I've finished, sorry. Do you need me to repeat it? Oh, you're right. No.